It is, yeah. Hello, everyone. This is Zafar Abundance Wala, and you are watching Abundance Show on Global Abundance Organization, GAO TV. And today I am really super excited to see John D. Anderson. And I won't tell him a sentence about him, but I'll request John, please introduce yourself.
All right. Thank you, Zafar, for asking me to be on your program, and I'm excited to share a little bit about myself. My entrepreneurial journey began approximately 30 years ago when I launched the Detroit chapter of the Entrepreneurs Organization, and we're actually having our 30th anniversary a week from Saturday. And part of that was based on the fact that I wanted to be around other entrepreneurs. And just like your excitement with Peter Diamandis, it was that same concept that if I could meet at the time, this is 30 years ago, I said, if I could have met Bill Gates before he was Bill Gates, wouldn't that be cool? So maybe I'll get involved with these entrepreneurs and I'll meet people along the way that would be really interesting to know and become friends with before they're just untouchable. And so that was sort of my nucleus for that. I had an office furniture dealership that I ran at the time, and I was on my entrepreneurial journey. And one of the big influences at that time was a gentleman by the name of Vern Harnish. And Vern Harnish has something called Scaling Up. And he's the author of The Rockefeller Habits, Mastering the Rockefeller Habits, and a book called Scaling Up. And they have coaches all over the world. And I was his very first coach. And Vern, I met at MIT at a program, and it was, for me, using a Star Wars analogy, it was like meeting Obi-Wan Kenobi. I'm really amazed with this guy. I want to become friends with him, and I want to spend time with him. And that relationship has blossomed to the point where he's coming into town next week, and I'm actually the executor of his children's wills. So we have a very tight relationship and a lifelong friendship. The next big pivotal moment, again, life is full of lots of moments, but was meeting Peter Diamandis. So Vern ran a program where he would bring in thought leaders from across the globe. And I met Jim Collins that way, and Patrick Lencioni and others. And so this guy, Peter Diamandis, shows up. This is almost 15 years ago. And he's presenting his book, Abundance, Why the Future is Better Than You Think. And I was incredibly impressed. And I sat in the room and I thought, oh my God, if Vern was Obi-Wan Kenobi, this is like Yoda. I need to spend time with this guy. I need to become friends with him, just like I do with Vern. I need to start understanding what he's sharing with me. And I gotta work this relationship. I'm in an audience. I mean, that was the extent of my thinking, but some way I'm going to meet him. Well, then serendipity steps in, or goals, or however you want to talk about it. And within a year, I'm out at Singularity University with 45 other people. And he's there with Ray Kurzweil. And it became the sort of the starting point or the launch of something that's called Abundance 360 today. So Abundance 360 just finished, I think, our 14th year. I've attended every year. And along the way, I have become friends with Peter Diamandis. So he'll be coming into Michigan. I'm bringing him in on September 28th, and he'll be speaking to the Economic Club, to YPO, to the Entrepreneurs Organization, to business leaders from Michigan, and then we'll spend time together. So I've done this. This is the second time I've brought Peter in over the last decade, and so I've developed this personal relationship with him. One of the influences of abundance on me and Peter Diamandis was in the early days. Again, remember, I've been going to this thing for 14 years. He would challenge us and say, if you're not a disruptor, you will be disrupted. Now, relationships are incredibly important to me. I never blow up a relationship. That's why I have this long-term relationship with Vern Harnish, and now I have a decade-long relationship with Peter Diamandis, is that you have to take care of your relationships. And my philosophy in life is relationships come before money. So with that in mind, and Peter saying, "Boy, you're either going to be disrupted or you're going to be a disruptor." I originally thought, well, I can see how the automotive industry is going to be disrupted. I can see how like Ford Motor Company is going to be in trouble if they don't get on board with autonomous vehicles and electrification and so on. They literally could be out of business before the decade closes. So I could see how it would happen to other people, but I couldn't see how it would happen to me. So I allowed some more thinking time, and I'll get into how I do this thinking. But I allowed more thinking time, and I'm like, maybe I could disrupt the idea of retirement. That perhaps retirement only came around in the late 1800s. It's like a very modern idea. And maybe it doesn't serve humanity in any meaningful way. And I'd watched my father retire, and that didn't go very well either. So I decided I'm gonna replace retirement. So I wrote a book called Replace Retirement: Living Your Legacy in the Exponential Age. And I published this book in 2019. So
Wow.
it gave me a chance to be an author, and it gave me a chance to share how I might disrupt an idea, a technology, if you will, being retirement. And so I have to give Peter Diamandis credit for that. If he hadn't challenged us to write the book, and again, he didn't challenge me to write the book. If he hadn't challenged me to be a disruptor, then I would have been disrupted. And so I thought, well, this is a way to serve humanity. I'm not stepping on anybody's toes. I'm not jeopardizing any relationships. I'm not competing with anybody. This is kind of a wide open area, and that's led to more relationships. One of the people that's probably most central in this idea of changing the way we age is a gentleman by the name of Chip Connolly, and Chip Connolly has a whole backstory that's amazing. But he created something called the Modern Elder Academy. They have locations in Baja, Mexico, and then in Santa Fe. And I would say he's the leader in this area in terms of this idea of replacing retirement. So that's a little bit of my story. I'm an entrepreneur, I'm an author, and then today I'm working on new technologies.
Wow. John, you know, just I mean, when I hear the name Peter H. Diamandis, I get goosebumps. I'm in so much in love with him. I started this abundance show. Just copying abundance 360. The idea is so exponential that the only solution to our modern world issues are, since the problems are exponential, the solutions have got to be exponential. How about yourself seeing? You've been, it's like more than one, and it's around 1.5 decade that you've been seeing Peter H. Diamandis, and you are into abundance 360. You're a member of the, this is, to me, this is the world's most premium people's platform, this abundance 360. I'm so inspired by this. How about, I mean, plus 14 years, minus 14 years. What's the difference? Being the part of Abundance 360, and what's the change in yourself?
Uh, in addition, so the book was again that first opportunity to say, how would I intersect with the changes that are happening today, and make a contribution, not a contribution on a small scale like with one client, but a contribution to many. So that kind of led to the book. The next sort of piece of this puzzle is I reading all this about technology and spending time with these folks. One of the things that Peter encourages us is to come up with a moonshot. And so my original moonshot in writing the book was to replace retirement with intentional living. In that book is a whole kind of how do you do that? So it's by setting lifetime goals. You pick the age you're going to die, and you work backwards from that. It's all in my book, and it's available both in a written form and Audible. But that's part of the work I do today. I work with entrepreneurs and business owners, and so it evolved into this tool called the Legacy Map and the Character Compass, which is introduced in the book. And then I wanted to jazz up the whole process, and I called it the Exponential Leader Practice. So the Exponential Leader Practice is essentially a way of living and approaching life. From that, about a year ago in 2024, I guess it was, or the 2025 conference, I came back and a young man reached out to me and he was looking for a mentor on LinkedIn. I'm the only person who responded to his request. So we meet for coffee. He's in the area and he explains that I'm a coder, but I want to be an entrepreneur and would you mentor me? And I'm like, sure, but I've got this book and I'd like to create an avatar, a John bot, if you will, who can help anyone in the world in any language utilize my tools. Can you help me with that? And he said, sure, I understand how to code AI. And of course, the technology has advanced so quickly over the last year. So he started by creating a John bot, if you will, so that anybody reading my book could then use this avatar, this AI agent to help them implement the tools I have in my book. More recently, I was working with one of my clients and I mentioned, hey, we're working on this JohnBot idea. And he said, well, could JohnBot help my my executives who have worked with you to continue working with you, just not the live version of you, because I can only work with so many people at one time, but work with your AI agent, your JohnBot, to continue this process. So I said, yeah, I looked at Ethan, can we create that? And he said, yeah, I'll work on that. So he's working on that currently. That led to coming back from Abundance 360 this year and saying, what if we launched, one of our tools is called a triangle. What if we launched 10 million triangles in 10 years, meaning we would impact 30 million people across the globe in entering into a triangle? So that was one of the moonshots I came back with this year, is that how do we make 10 million triangles in 10 years? And again, Ethan, my partner, has been developing all that. The second moonshot I just more recently came up with, and again, this is where Peter, he encourages us, and if you want a good description of moonshot, it's something you think has like a 1% chance of success, but if I work on it for the next decade, I won't be disappointed. And that's kind of what this Replace Retirement was. It had a 1% chance of success, but if I worked on it for 10 years, I wouldn't be disappointed. And that's proved true. It's not because what it directly did, it's all the indirect pieces. So we got this 10 million triangles in 10 years as one moonshot. And then the other one is making Michigan one of the top 5 places to live and work in America. So in the United States, Michigan's one of the states, and it's not considered a top 5 state. The reason why is, even though at the turn of the century when Henry Ford started here, Detroit was a top 3 city in the world because of what was happening in the Industrial Revolution and the fact that the automobile was such a integral component to all that. And Henry Ford then created, learned how to automate it and make cars and mass production and so on. And so we've been here before. One of the things that's so amazing is Michigan's this beautiful state. We're surrounded by the Great Lakes, right? And the Great Lakes are these huge bodies of water that they are almost incomprehensible until you see them, but they feel more like an ocean than a lake because they're massive. So we're surrounded by these freshwater lakes, which makes us a unique place in the world. And then we've got all these inland lakes. I mean, like thousands of them. So it's almost like anybody can live in Michigan and live on a body of water. Anybody wants to. But nobody knows that. So until you come to the state and you're like, well, this is a really beautiful state. You have state forests, you have national forests, you have reasonable price property. So I started thinking about this, and like, if I could bring in Peter Diamandis, and I like I mentioned, I'm going to bring him in on September 28th to speak to business leaders. And I brought in Salim Ismail last October to speak to business leaders. And so I've got this connection with all these business leaders. If I can keep bringing in a constant stream of abundant conversations and ideas, that maybe we can transform the state back into a place it was once before, which is one of the best places to live and work in America. And all that's based on all the technology that Peter talks about. If you have autonomous vehicles, so you can sit in your car and actually get some work done, or we could do the meeting we're having today, and then you could ride a drone to another city. Let's say the most vibrant city around Michigan, not necessarily Detroit, would be Chicago. Chicago's a beautiful city. You can just zip across the lake in a drone. Essentially, people could finish their day at work. They could head over to Chicago in a drone, watch a sports game, go bar hopping until 2 a.m., and then drone back. I mean, these are all things that are possible. If we take it even further and talk about the emergence of new technologies, you and I in the future won't be working off the tool you're using right now, StreamYard. We'll be in a virtual setting where it will feel like we are physically with each other. We'll be able to see body gestures. We'll be able to pick up on emotions and so on. So I'm assuming the virtual reality technologies, not in the distant future, will allow us to feel like we are physically in the same room together. That would make more effective meetings. So that means we can sort of be anywhere in the world we want. So, you talk about sort of the influence of the people in the room at Abundance 360 and Peter Diamandis and Salim Ismail was another name we threw around. The more time you spend in the space and the more you get your head around it, the more it makes sense of all the opportunities. And I had suggested before this latest book, right? We Are as Gods, because, and really Stephen Kotler does the writing here. Peter is giving content to this, but it's really Stephen who actually does the writing. And Stephen's, I think, got 17 books out now that are bestsellers. He spends an hour a day writing. And I mentioned earlier I would get into this. So I spend 2 hours each morning, Monday through Thursday, praying, meditating, reading, writing, and reflecting. I spend a couple hours, no technology. So there's no phone on, there's no computer on. This is just sheets of paper, my journal, books, books I read by paper and underline and so on. All of it is to give me the ability to stay focused on a topic for an extended period of time and to allow my mind to uncover insights and ideas. And I think that's essential in addition to the technology. If AI is going to make these meetings easier, if AI is going to schedule for us easier, if AI is going to get us from Michigan over to Chicago for an evening or New York City easier, then our role is to be the creative force in the world. AI is going to take care of all the stuff we don't want to do. That leaves us time to do the things we want to do, which is exactly what you're doing and the thing I'm doing, which is I want to sit down and think about how can I contribute value in this world and contribute value for the rest of my life. And that's the genius of it. But it won't come without the quiet time. So that's what the 2 hours is about. I'll add one other piece on this is I'm calling these kind of 4 technologies we need to be aware of, or intelligences, intelligence. So if we put all technology under the heading of AI, artificial intelligence, there's another intelligence out there called natural intelligence. And you sent me some questions and I came up with this. You said, hidden solutions in your work and global trends. What is the most underrated solution for a sustainable world that people are completely ignoring right now? It's biomimicry. It's natural intelligence. The Earth has been around for a long, long time. Life on the planet has been 3 billion years or something. It goes way back. So there are lessons that nature has learned about how to adapt and adjust. And so nature is another great source of intelligence that we don't, I think our ancestors knew how to do that. Because they were in nature for an extended period of time and dependent on an interaction and relationship with it, they were probably in touch with certain intelligences that we don't get today because we're sitting in 4 walls. So there's artificial intelligence, there's natural intelligence, then there's financial intelligence. How do you know to invest your money? Where do you put your dollars at work when the world is changing at a rapid pace? I would challenge that your financial advisor is clueless. They're playing an old game in a new world. I took over responsibility for my investments about a decade ago, around the same time as I met Peter Diamandis. And matter of fact, that day when I was at Singularity University, and it was Peter and Ray Kurzweil, Peter said that Ray Kurzweil just accepted a role with Google. They made him an offer that he couldn't refuse. He kind of joked about. And I'm like, okay, if Ray Kurzweil's considered one of the most far-seeing men in the world, that he's like 86% of his predictions are coming true, and he just signed on with Google and he doesn't need it for the money, maybe there's something about Google I should be paying attention to. So I bought $40,000 worth of Google shares almost 14 years ago. You can imagine what the multiples are like today. The same thing with NVIDIA. Everybody talks about NVIDIA, right? I bought NVIDIA at $2 a share. Why? Because I'm reading every week. They're doing all these things with their chips. I don't know about technology. I don't know about chips or anything like that. I'm just like, this name keeps coming up again and again and again. So I started with $1,000 and then I increased it to $8,000, but I was buying it at $2 a share. It's, I think, $200 today. So I call that financial intelligence. You have to be watching the current trends and trying to understand where things are going, both good and bad. Fair enough. And then the final, so we got AI, artificial intelligence, NI, natural intelligence, FI, financial intelligence, and then the final one is emotional intelligence. I shared earlier that I put relationships before money. I have had this policy all my life, and the payoffs have been huge. So the reason why I have a personal friendship with Peter Diamandis, and the reason why I have a personal friendship with Salim Ismail, is I found a way to create value for them and ask for nothing in return. Especially with Peter. The only thing I ever asked him to do was to endorse the back of my book. So he's one of the endorsers on my book. That's all I've done. I got him a $120,000 speaking gig. I don't know, it was about 5 or 6 years ago. I wanted to do something to serve him because people come to people with wealth and power and they want stuff from them. I'm not wanting anything from him. I want to create value for him. I want to demonstrate that this is a relationship that's worthy. And that takes that kind of emotional intelligence to understand that you need to serve first before you ask for anything in return. This goes back to, the ancient Stoics and everything else. It's a model that I use. If you can imagine a pyramid, Maslow's pyramid, a hierarchy of needs. And this comes from Chip Conley. I mentioned him earlier, the Modern Elder Academy. He breaks it into 3 levels. The bottom is a job, the middle is a career, and the top is a calling. I help people go from a career to a calling. But let's break this down. What is a job? A job provides financial security, and the reward is a paycheck or money. And it's really about me. It's about the individual. I want to take care of myself. And so the mentality will often be, what's in it for me? What's the least amount of work I need to do to get from point A to point B? And that's very normal and natural. That's kind of what jobs are about. Then you get people who move into a career. A career, according to Maslow, is where you get recognition and acknowledgement, and it provides a level of self-esteem. The trick to going from a job to a career is service. My job is to serve the customer. The customer may be outside the company. The customer may be within the company. But if I'm not serving the customer better than everybody else, I'm never going to get solidly into that middle tier. That's all it is. By the way, it's still selfish. It's like, what's the best way to get point A to B? Take really good care of the customer, whoever they are, whether it be Peter Diamandis or Joe Blow. You're going to get rewarded and recognized for it. So it has this return both intrinsically and extrinsically in terms of financial security, because now you realize, there's lots of people that'll hire me. There's lots of opportunities for me. Now we're talking about what you brought me in is, so how do I go from a career to a calling? So as Maslow would talk about, a calling is where you're serving your purpose and meaning, and it gives you self-esteem. In a sense, you start to trust yourself. You start to feel comfortable moving in different circles and so on. And the other piece is job is dependent, career is independent, calling is interdependent. So what you and I are doing today is an interdependent relationship. It's like, how can I learn from you? How can you learn from me? How do we navigate through a world? What are the rooms I need to be in? What are the things I need to be paying attention to? That's all sort of interdependent thinking. By the way, I think this is the biggest challenge in the United States. we have built this independent thinking so deeply into our DNA that we don't know how to think interdependently. We don't know how to collaborate anymore with the rest of the world. And so I think it's our ceiling of complexity that we're bouncing off of as a society. We're like, well, we'll just double down on independence. We'll be even more independent than we were before. And we hit it, we bounce off it, we hit it, we bounce off it. The whole key, and back to our conversation today, is how do I use this exponential thinking, these moonshots and so on, to change my thinking from what's in it for me to what's in it for humanity and community. We do that, and the world's our oyster. So I'll pause with that.
The great, I mean, your whole discussion is mesmerizing. I don't want to say a word, and I want to keep listening to you. Before we move our discussion any further, I would request you to please have few reflections on your book. How did how the idea was generated in your head, and could you give us just a little bit walk through your book, this replacement of retirement of replacement?
Replace retirement, it was, the one piece was this idea, where can I be a disruptor and not damage any relationships? Another piece of it was watching my father. Our fathers are obviously a huge influence in all our lives, our mothers and fathers. But my father was a big influence in my life. And when I was younger and I was trying to navigate the world, and I grew up in an upper middle class home, so I was very fortunate to be in a very comfortable living, and my father paid for my college years, and so I had a leg up. But he would always say to me, "You better figure out what you're going to do in life, because you're going to have to do it the rest of your life. Like, I'm not going to take care of you. I'm going to get you launched, but it's all up to you. And so you better do something you love in life." And I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do in life. I mean, I think this again is normal and natural for any young person. Who knows? I mean, you're kind of clueless. I don't know what to do. And so he kind of instituted that idea of independence, and he gave me a strong work ethic. So I would say his greatest gift was he taught me to work hard. Well, because he had a business and I got to work in his company. He said, if you work in my company, you have to work harder than anybody else there, because otherwise you're embarrassing me, and I'm not letting you tear apart my reputation. So you better hustle your ass, or I'm kicking you out of there. So I worked really, really hard. And the good news is all the people I was working with said, John, if my dad was president of this company, I sure as hell wouldn't be doing what we're doing. You need to get the hell out of here and go back to school. And so those influences were really important. So this is all great. My father has a successful career. He starts as a draftsman, and by the time he retires, he's CEO of the company. So it's this beautiful progression. He retired around age 65 because my mother was ill with cancer. And she then passed away, and he was like a wreck before long. I would say in 3 years, you could start to see some real deterioration. And in 5 years, his life was just sort of like lost. And so here was a guy who was running a multinational company, and he couldn't like make a decision anymore. And so that deeply impacted me. Like, maybe this retirement thing just isn't healthy for people. That without clear purpose and meaning in your life, you're just kind of wandering. So it was like the comment I said earlier, that maybe he had the independent piece all right, but he didn't understand how to be interdependent, or he didn't. Maybe that's another piece, is that we're so much of our identity, certainly in the United States, is wrapped up in our career and the work we do, that absent that identity, that you're no longer John, the executive at a company, what are you? Like, what's your purpose in life? What's your worth in life? And one of the things I've made a joke of in the past, lightly, is that in the United States we have self-storage units. So there's these little units you can rent, and you can put all your stuff in it, because people here seem to just collect all kinds of stuff, and they don't really need it, but they don't want to get rid of it, and so they fill up these storage units with just belongings and all kinds of things. And there's reality TV shows about kind of going into somebody's storage locker, and maybe you find something worth a lot, which is usually not the case. And but what we've done with our older generation, because they don't seem to have any value anymore, because they don't see they have value anymore, we put them in assisted living homes. Well, if you take assisted living, which is basically, let's say it's a two, usually they don't have a lot of stairs because, again, people aren't real good with stairs. So sometimes they're a single level or there are two levels, but they're usually not high rises. And if they are, they have elevators. Um, in a way, it's almost like a storage unit. Like we're storing our older population, our older generation in these assisted living homes until they die. And then we clean out that room and we stick someone else in there. So I don't know, it's a little bit of a cold and crass example, but that's kind of what again led to this idea of writing this book, is that it's something that seems to be prevalent. It seems to be a societal issue. And here I watched my own father, who, had worked so hard and done so well along the way, just kind of become the shell of himself. And then basically I watched him mark time. He would I'd ask him one time. I talked about golf. I play golf. I'm not a huge golfer, and I'm like, well, Dad, why don't you play golf with me? Why don't you? Well, I'm too old. I can't do that. I can't do that now. So there was a lot of that. I can't do that. And when we're young, we can do anything. I don't think we need to lose that spirit. I can do that. So in a way, the book was a way to sort of, I guess, get past. I didn't want to follow in my father's footsteps. And then the other piece was, if I write, I joked to my friends, I wrote this damn book, so I can't retire now. So
Sure, yes. Yeah. This
self
is the greatest of the motivation that you can have.
right, yeah. So be careful what you think about, because it's going to affect you. Yeah. By the way, am I pronouncing it correctly? Zafar?
Yeah, Zafar. This is Zafar. Yeah.
So, um, that's again this idea of the couple hours in the morning I was talking about, is that without time to think and reflect, you can't write a book. It requires a lot of to order paragraph after paragraph after paragraph, and then make it into kind of an interesting story. That takes a lot of thought and concentration. And so I'm a big believer on that. That is important for all of us. We have to create that quiet time for thought and inspiration. And back to my nature idea, I think some of that can get downloaded by simply just taking a walk in the woods. So
Oh. Again, since as you said, we are all faced with the low self-esteem at some stage of our life, that I can't do that. A lot of stuff is like, can't do this. Just but people keep us telling. Earlier, we want to do everything in life, and we think that we can do everything. But as the time passes and the people keep communicating 70% negative about ourselves, then we start believing what people say. So but this is amazing that you did not follow footsteps of your father, that as he used to say that I'm old, I can't play golf with you. And you said, you just, for that, to that extent, you didn't follow your father. That's amazing. And how to keep the spirit alive, and how to, although with the age, the person of 33 or like 20s, we don't have that powers. But as we are aging, but how you keep yourself mentally so strong that your mind start controlling your body, and then your body exactly reflects back to as you order the body back to you.
uh, there's one of the things I read, and you can kind of see some stuff behind me, is The Daily Stoic by Ryan Holiday. And in it are quotes from the Stoics. And so Marcus Aurelius and Seneca and all these ancient Greeks. And there's one in there that I don't know who to give credit to, but it goes something to the fact that we will protect our property with vigor, but we'll let anything into our mind. And that's so true. And this is the challenge with this device. And I wanted to read there were a couple things in this book, the Kotler book, that I just love so much, and I thought are relevant. So give me a minute here. I actually had dog-eared these. Here it is. I got it. He said, in humans, the bandwidth of attention is 50 to 120 bits wide. That's all you can focus on at any one time. That's it. Your moment by moment reality fits through a channel only a few dozen bits wide. Listening to someone speak requires about 60 bits worth of attention. If two people are talking at once while a faucet drips, it's game over. Attention is maxed. You're tapped out. How tapped out? As of 2024, the average user spent almost 2.5 hours a day on social media. The attention span of a goldfish is estimated at 3 to 9 seconds. The attention span of a human trained on 2+ hours of social media a day is shorter. So, what's the proper analogy? An insect? No, that's giving it too much credit. A hungry insect. When a bee forages for nectar, it takes 1 to 2 seconds to determine if a flower is worth its time. That's how long the modern brain considers an idea before swiping right. So, when I talked about this 2 hours and so on, is that in this modern world, there is this challenge. There's always challenges in technology in modern world. The automobile is a challenge. This can really screw up your ability to sit, think, and focus. So if this technology is going to enable all kinds of cool things like autonomous and yada, 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 and even new energy sources, they're working on fusion power right now. They're building a plant in Virginia, 400 megawatts fusion power. So let's assume that power issues go away. The sun gives off enough power every hour to power the planet for the entire year. So let's assume either via solar or fusion or whatever, it will replace oil and gas. So this whole thing going on in the Middle East, all that will be a non-issue in the very near future because it will be replaced by technology. And I would say that what's happening right now is only going to accelerate that solution, okay? So that's the good thing behind the bad thing. So the same thing is for us is we as humans, we have to create that time to sit and reflect and think about what is our contribution. And the good news, which you understand already, is that we can play on a scale we've never been able to contribute before, but it does require that ability to just sit, reflect, and focus. And so that's essential whether you're, in my case, I'm 68 years old. It's as important at 68 as it is at 28. Now, the way that I started this journey, and again, I share this in the book, is I begin with the end in mind. This is a Stephen Covey thing. By the way, I've read like thousands of books. So when I was a young man in school, I was not a great student. I was an average kind of C student. I never read anything I didn't have to read. Today, I read every single day. I love reading. So, and if you read Elon Musk's biography, he claims to have read every book in the library by like 16. Every book. So if you want to be that smart and that successful, just read every book in the library. This is not new stuff. It's read. Okay. So one of the things is Stephen Covey, who had a big impact on me, the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. He suggests in the 7 Habits, begin with the end in mind and first things first. So begin with the end in mind is where I suggest go to the end of your life. So make a decision today. How old do I want to be when I die? Not like, I don't know what my parents were, 80-ish, 70. No. In a modern world with all this technology coming in longevity, why can't you live to 100? So my original number was 103. I've subsequently changed it. So once I planted that in my head, I'm going to live to 103. It forced me to think about how the heck am I going to do that? One, because my mother didn't get past 60. And my dad, well, he made it to 93, which was pretty impressive. That would be okay. But 103, then I'm going to have to think differently. I'm going to have to take care of my body differently. I'm going to have to be engaged in the world differently, right? So again, it was the nucleus. So begin with the end in mind, pick that age, and then use that as the map to build everything back from. We are taught to think linearly, which is next year is going to be mostly more or less like last year, and then the so on and so on. So we have this sort of linear way of thinking. What Peter Diamandis introduces is this exponential way of thinking. So why don't I start at 103, describe what my awesome life would look like at 102, and then work backwards from there. So again, you have to plant the seed somewhere. So that's a great place to start thinking differently. And that works just as well for a 50-year-old as it does for a 30-year-old. So if I were 28 years old, there is a maturity required here. You have to accept this whole idea. But if you're 28 years old and you're like, I want to build this awesome life, then start with the end in mind. What does an awesome life look like for you from a spiritual point of view, from a health point of view, from a relationship point of view, from a financial point of view? Lay it all out. Don't worry about how you're going to get there. Just plant that seed. And that's where I say the mind will do the rest. It will start to say, how do I make that happen? I remember I had this bold idea. I wrote down $20 million. What would represent financial freedom for me? $20 million. I don't have $20 million. I thought, well, if I could live to 103 and I invest my money wisely, I might get there. But it still forced me to say, how would I do that? How would I do that? And so then I started figuring out ways, practices and so on that would put me in the right place. And the example of the investment, right? Buying NVIDIA at $2 a share, that's $200 a share today. Your mind is really powerful if you give it the time to think about things. So if I hadn't set that number in my head, 103 or $20 million, I don't know if I would have had the wisdom at that moment as I was reading through to say, oh, well, maybe that investment might get me part of the way there. And so it's your journey. We have been given this beautiful thing called a brain and a mind and creativity. Tap into it, give it some goals and some direction, and then just let it do its work. But don't let this thing make all the noise in your life so you can't hear it. This would be another thing I hear is that people will say, I don't have the time. That sounds great, John. You probably have the time. Your kids are growing up, you got a nice home and yada, yada. If you don't make the time now, you're not going to have the time later. Again, and I'm singing to the choir and some of this stuff. I'm just a practitioner. I read the book, just like 7 Habits and all these other books, and said, how would I implement this? The other thing is, like as a starting point, when I got introduced to this idea of sit down for an hour a day and write out your thoughts, this was from Earl Nightingale. This is, again, all in my book. He said, sit with a blank piece of paper for an hour a day and your cup of coffee, first thing in the morning, and write down the problem at the top of the page, and then how would you solve it? The first time I did that, I'm 2 minutes in, I'm like, I don't know what to write. I don't even know how to think. So I had to kind of like start exercising my brain. So for me, I thought, well, why don't I read something and then I'll get a journal and then I'll write something. And I still practice that today. I read certain things in the morning to kind of trigger my brain to say, what do you want to do with that? How do you implement that in your life? What does that mean to you? And so that little stimulus. So it started with, that's all it was. I didn't do anything else. I just read something and then I journaled. And it literally probably started 15 minutes, 10 minutes, it doesn't matter how small. Then I just started layering things on. I thought, well, if I journal, then maybe I could do something else because I'm pretty consistent with this. And then I can't even remember the next thing. I guess one of the things is like, everybody talks about religion. I'm like, I never read them. I'll read the Bible. I'll read the Old Testament. I'll read the New Testament. Everybody talks about this book. I read every other book. I don't read this book. So I read through it twice and stuff. And I read, well, you should put God first in your life. I'm like, well, it makes sense. Why don't I do it? So why don't I start the day with my spiritual journey with God and pray and make that? And then, well, meditation's great. Why don't I put the meditation right behind that? And that's how I started layering all these little practices. Where's exercise? I got to fit exercise in there. And so there's a guy by the name of He wrote Atomic Habits. James Clear wrote the book Atomic Habits, and he talks about habit layering. So I took one anchor thing, which was the journaling, and then I stuck another thing on top of that, and another thing on top of that, and so on. So the 2 hours I spend now didn't happen overnight. It started with just a couple of minutes of journaling. So you can start anywhere. You can start with meditation or whatever. But you have to get that behavior of exercising the mind. Now, I'll share another tool I figured out along the way, because this is all work I do with clients. There's the should stage, there's the want stage, and then there's the love stage. The should stage is, boy, John, this has been really inspiring. I should do that. I should meditate for 10 minutes a day. Well, the should means you got to just muscle through it. So you better do it every day for 90 days. And, you just try to get through it. And after 90 days, this is my suggestion. Some people say it's 21 days to build a habit. There's a study in London about 66 days. So I think 66 is closer to the sweet spot. But what I'm suggesting in 90 days, in using meditation as experience, and you're like, so I finished the 90 days. I asked my client, so how was meditating for 10 minutes a day? They're like, I liked it, but then I went on a vacation or something came along and I kind of fell off the wagon. And so I did it part of the time, but I wasn't great at it. I wasn't real consistent. But do you want to do it more? And you're like, yeah, I really actually feel better when I meditate 10 minutes a day. Oh, good. You've gotten past should. Now you're at want. I want to do it. I just have to build it into a habit. The want part is the key to the puzzle. Once you want something, otherwise you're never going to get there. From want, then you go to love. So the reason why I do this 2 hours and so on, I love doing it. I love who I am doing it. I love the insights I get. I love the person I am. I love being a leader and a role model for others. It's not want anymore. It's love. I love being the person who carves out 2 hours a day to go through all these exercises. And I actually have a little checklist on my board here if I want to. Did I do all these things? But that's the key to the puzzle. Commit to a should, just one should. Don't pile them on, whether it's reading or journaling or meditating or whatever the thing is, and try to get to the want stage in that 90 days. And that's how I think things become sticky. It's like, you know what? That's really cool. And then again, once you have that anchor, then you can say, what else? Well, wow, look at me. I'm meditating 10 minutes a day and I've been doing this for 6 months or a year. What else could I stick on there? And so on. That's all I am. You're just getting the version of John that's, 30 years into this journey. It didn't happen all overnight, and it shouldn't happen all overnight. And it didn't need to happen overnight. I just needed to put one foot in front of the other. And again, this is all documented in books, including mine. There's so much written about this.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Again, John, I mean, since you have already come a long way, and I was feeling so comfortable when you talk of that you were not that brilliant student, you were just a C grader or B grader. And then, I'm too. I mean, it's really hard for me to still read books. The John Murray is my his best friend is Dr. Arthur Murray in Silicon Valley, and he keeps me sending books. Like he sent me Bold, he sent me this exponential growth, the Slim Smile. I mean, I'm just reading the 6 Ds of Demanders too, and I'm huge. I have taken. I tried a lot to be you. I mean, as you are the member of Abundance 360, but it's very expensive. I even can't think of that. But I mean, the Abundance 360 management was kind enough that they got me 30 days mindset boot camp. So I have gone through that, and I have a few just a simple idea of 6 Ds of Demanders. That starting from digitizing, deceptive phase, and dematerializing, demonetizing, and democratizing, and so on and so forth. So this was a miraculous thinking that this was data driven optimism. It is not like somebody's just like psychological impact or like somebody's feelings or so. No, what the Mendes and you people are in the company, you all are data driven, and this was this been 1 year. I've been struggling hard to get that closer to Peter Diamandis as I am to you, and I could not. So, to you, I mean, I wanted to hold Abundance Summit in April 2026. Same, man, I could not get an inch closer to whole of it. Is there any possibility that under your mentorship, I mean, this is a third world, and this got to be a favor from your side that you can mentor us. I mean, I've got a couple of friends, I mean, who can be part of this Abundance Summit. Like, it could be a copy of the Abundance 360, but I just want to start that just because it's my strong belief that this is the only I think, to me, this is the only solution to the exponential problems we have, that we need these all big brains to talk to each other, sit together, and they have to come to a platform like Abundance 360. So this mind abundance is just simple copy. I'm borrowing all thinking like moonshots and everything, and this is one of the reason that earlier the name of this abundance show was Moonshot Podcasts. Then my one of my friends asked me, no, don't do this just because Peter Diamandis, he himself has this Moonshot Podcast. So I have already a lot of podcasts with the same that name too. So in I mean, do you want? I mean, can I ask you to mentor me to generate another platform, copying Peter Diamandis and borrowing your wisdom? Do you allow me?
Yes and no. Let me two thoughts that came to my mind. One is there is a membership in abundance for people who represent the right mentality but can't pay for it. So I will suggest your name into that group so that maybe you can come to Abundance 360. So I'll make that introduction on your behalf, and we'll see where that goes. The second thing, and that ties to an idea I had, is that we attract. This is really cool. We attract relationships by how we show up in our own relationships. So when I shared all these practices and behaviors and everything that I do, that's what gives me, that attracts the opportunity to even be sitting on an airplane with Peter Diamandis. Like, if I don't practice, if I don't show up giving off that energy, then he won't pick up on it. Otherwise, again, I'm just somebody wasting his time. So I want to really implant that on you in the sense, and I look at it this way. I'll use the phone again. Everything in nature is a sine wave. That's the way the planets move. That's how the seasons change. That's the ocean. It's the menstrual cycle of women. It's everything in the universe is a sine wave, except this. This is digital. It's 1 or 0. It's either on or it's off. So if all humans and animals and nature is operating like this, and you then bring this wave in that's 1 or 0, it can try to replicate that, but it's still 1 and 0. It's on or off. They clash. So part of this journey is, how do we get our energy wave going like this, so that when we meet another person, we get into harmonization with them? And I learned this actually a little bit through my dog. Again, thinking and reflecting on this, if everything in nature is a sine wave, and when I walk out in the woods, or you spend time on the water, or any place you've ever been that really inspired you outdoors, the reason why is it was reharmonizing you. It naturally does that. I have a dog, a golden retriever. Dogs do this too. They are naturally in that. So when you spend time and you pet a dog, it reharmonizes you. So part of your journey, your personal journey, is to figure out, how do I get that harmony in me, so that when I have the opportunity to meet somebody or be in a room or or communicate with somebody, I'm giving that energy off so they want to help me. So that's another piece of the puzzle. Like what can I do first on me, then with others? So there's that piece. So I'm willing to introduce you. I wonder, I would be looking, I don't know, I got to think about this. Is there a resource while on this journey? Are there resources that are around you that would actually be totally on board with what you're talking about, and they're not half a world away? And my instincts are yes, you just haven't met them yet. Like you're not in that circle. So you haven't yet, right? You haven't yet had that opportunity to show up in the room at Singularity University with Peter Diamandis and Ray Kurzweil. So it's like, where are those opportunities in your community? And so I think that, again, I'm willing to explore, is there some way to get you into the abundance world? Two, you working on these tools that we've been talking about. Like, how do I start to change the energy? You've already done it. You attracted me, right? So you are actually on the journey, but it's like, how do I now double down on that, right? And attract that more and more, because there was one of the I mentioned briefly, there's this guy Earl Nightingale, and he was kind of like somebody, I read his book. At the time there were cassettes. This is back in the 1980s when I worked for IBM, and you could check out cassettes, and because there were no books on tape, or there was no Audible at that time. And so and this is how I kind of got interested in reading, is I listened to books first before I started reading books. And he had these, like, it was 6 cassettes, so it's like 12 lessons. And that was the one where you're supposed to sit down and write what you're trying to solve every day. Another one was, he called it the Field of Diamonds. And he has a whole story that goes along with it. But essentially, the diamonds are right in front of us. We don't need to go across the world to find them. They're actually right in our backyard. Where do I look to kind of clean those off? So I think that's another piece of this. I can play a minor role in this, because remember, I got my whole clients, I've got my moonshot, so there's a bunch of stuff I'm working on. But I'm open to continuing the conversation. But it's like, where's the diamond in my backyard that I just haven't seen? And my guess is it's there. And it's almost like, what's your local version of a Vern Harnish or a Peter Diamandis that becomes your partner? Because the other piece that's so critical of this whole sine wave thing and everything else is that if I don't get out in nature, I won't feel that. If I don't pet the dog, I won't feel that. As long as you and I are on an electronic relationship, we can start to build something. But until we're physically together, you don't really feel that. And so that would be my other piece, is like, how do we get someone there physically? And then they're underwriting exactly what you're talking about. Like, they're like, oh my God, this is a great idea. Yes, we could do this right in our backyard. Yes, we need this to help our country and our community. And I'm willing to partner with you on it. And my guess is there's somebody around you who fits that. And perhaps based on our conversation today and our initial meeting, that will bubble up to me in my world, meaning someone in the Abundance 360 community who I've not yet developed a relationship with, but something clicks, and it's like, maybe this is somebody I can introduce you to. And once they hear what you're doing, they're like all on board. And that's one of the things we didn't talk about, is I think there are transformational relationships and then there are transactional relationships. Most of what we have in life are transactional relationships, and it sounds like a bad thing, but it's not a bad thing. You have to do transactions with all kinds of people all through your life. So it's not a bad thing. It's just understanding this is transactional. I think at any one time in life, I'm still figuring this one out, there's maybe 7 transformational relationships. And so part of my journey has been, how do I prepare John to attract that next transformational relationship? What do I need to do? What do I need to read? How do I need to show up? How do I view the world so that when I meet somebody, it becomes more than just a transaction, it becomes a transformation? And we talked about Salim Ismail. That was another person I brought in to speak. And it's somebody I wanted to meet. I'd seen Salim at Abundance 360. I knew of him, but I didn't know him. And so we ended up, I brought him in. He had a speaking gig. And then we met at a friend's house and we had some wine and we talked till like 1 a.m. And he's like, this was awesome. I'd come back and do it again. So I didn't have to do anything other than set up the opportunity for it. And that transformational relationship just naturally evolved, where he's a friend. And so that was another part of sort of this journey, is like, who do I need to be to even bring that into my universe? And which is exactly the question you're asking, but it always comes back to this, well, then I've got to invest that time and that energy. And right, I got to be a person that, of all the people asking for a Peter Diamandis' time, he's willing to consider me a friend in that circle. But I have to demonstrate I'm willing to show up and do the work. And so that's what led to writing the book. That's why I go to Abundance 360 every year. It's a huge expense. It's not an easy thing for me either. By the time you pay for the conference and you pay for the hotel and you pay for your travel and everything else, it's a massive commitment. And I've always done that, by the way. I've been going to something or another my whole life since I became an entrepreneur. So let's say at 20, I don't know when the first one was, maybe the launch of EO 30 years ago. I just decided, if I want to be an entrepreneur, if I want to hang out with entrepreneurs, I need to be an entrepreneur. I need, like, I don't know if I mentioned, I'm the founder of the Detroit chapter of the Entrepreneurs Organization. So back, what I was doing, another fun story. So I forget about all this stuff. So when I started into this entrepreneurial realm, and I don't know what I'm doing, and I found a business partner. He had a company that was kind of floundering, and he said, if you'll put some money in, I will match it, and we'll go into business together. And so that's kind of how to start it. And my father-in-law is the one that put up the money. And he said, you don't have to pay me back. Treat this as your MBA. So I've got the money. I now have a business partner, and we got a company. But I've never run a company. I've never led a team. I didn't know anything. I was an IBM salesman. That's what I had been trained at. And so I decided I better figure out how to do this. So I started reading, at the time, Fast Company magazine and Inc. magazine, and that's, again, those were the tools available, and the 7 Habits and so on. And so I'm flipping through Inc. magazine, and I see this ad, and it says, "The Birthing of Giants. Every year we invite 60 entrepreneurs from around the world to attend the MIT Enterprise Forum." It's sponsored by MIT, by Inc. magazine. I guess I was reading Inc. magazine. It's Inc. magazine, and the Young Entrepreneurs Organization. So I'm like, I fill out the application and I'm accepted. So I'm in the room with 60 other entrepreneurs from around the world, because it's limited to 60 people. And I don't know what it was at the time. Again, it was expensive, not like Abundance 360 expense, but it was a big ticket. And that's where I met Vern Harnish. But anyway, so what's this Young Entrepreneurs Organization? And Vern was actually the founder of that. And there was only like 400 members in the world at that time, and I don't know how many chapters. So I become a young entrepreneur there was no other chapter. There was no place for me to meet people. So after my second year, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go start the chapter. So I got with a buddy of mine, and we launched the Detroit chapter of the Young Entrepreneurs Organization 30 years ago. And then we're celebrating that anniversary a week from Saturday. But it was like, where do I got to be? Who do I got to meet to even get into the party, if you will? And so that was an initiative on my part to serve the community and create something that didn't yet exist, which is exactly what you're asking, right? I want to do the same thing. So again, but I did have to find some people to help me. I had a friend. We were in something called the local chamber of commerce had something called the oh, I can't remember the name of it now. But I was in it with him, and I'm like, hey, we're with old people, and this is like young people. This would be really and he said, yeah, let's do it. And so I started knocking on doors, and I had to get some support, and that's how I met all the young presidents owners. Is we didn't have any, we only had 12 members. I couldn't even put on an event. So I went to the young presidents, and they said, yeah, you can come to our holiday party. You can come to our golf outing and stuff. So they kind of helped underwrite it. But now I'm hanging out with people running $50 million companies. I had a little $3 million company. Now I'm with, so it just kept, right? I kept working these relationships, but I wasn't doing it for John. I was doing it for the Young Entrepreneurs Organization. I was serving something bigger than me, that just like you, that I believed in a lot. And I just had to figure out, who do I talk to? One of the relationships I have today is with the chairman of Domino's Pizza, who's a friend of mine. I met him before he was the one who took Domino's Pizza public when they bought it from Tom Monahan. I was reading a magazine. I'm reading this. We have this local business rag called Cranes. I'm reading through Cranes, and every year they list the highest paid CEOs in the city. And I'm looking through, and there's this guy's name, and he's making, I don't know maybe $4 million, whatever it was at the time. It was $400,000. This is about 30 years ago, also, and yet he's a young guy. He's in his 40s, so he's making more than the CEO of Ford, and more than the CEO of the utility companies. And I'm like, how is this guy who's so young making all this money? So I went and met him. I asked if I could meet with him. And he met me, and that started a friendship. And again, I didn't go in asking for anything from him. I just asked if I could meet with him. And I felt like I had enough of this going on. I'm not an idiot. I'm well read. I have ambitions and goals. I figure, give it a shot. And we're still friends to this day. He went on again to take Domino's public, and now he's chairman of the board and so on. But that was just me having the chutzpah, which is sort of what you did, to reach out to somebody and just say, I'd like to meet with you. And maybe that's what LinkedIn is today, although you're still not going to have a one-on-one personal relationship. And I want to tell you another thing about this guy. This is again, habits. So I go and I meet with this guy. He's CEO. He's the highest paid CEO in Detroit at the time, running a company. And I come back from the meeting, and he sends me a handwritten note. And every time I meet with him, I meet him then he hicks over Domino's, and he writes me, wait a minute, the guy's running this huge company, and he can write me a handwritten thank you note? Well, guess what I do today? I write handwritten thank you notes. Every day I write somebody a handwritten thank you note. Why? Because he wrote one to me. And I just mailed him a book, and he wrote me a note thanking me, right? He says, John, many thanks for sending along Joke's latest book. I appreciate it. Happy spring. Best wishes, Dave. So if the CEO of Domino's can write me a handwritten note, by God, I can write people handwritten notes. I've got no excuse not to. So it was this, if I behave like them, if I show up like them, maybe I'll get invited into the party. But I've got to serve. I got to follow the practices and the performance, and they've already paved the way. And again, I think that's, for whatever reason, when I met him 30 years ago, he must have sized me up. First, he gave me the opportunity to meet with him, but he must have sized me up on the spot and decided, this guy's not an idiot. I like the way he thinks. I like what he's doing. And even to this day, he's helping me. I'm still helping. We dropped the Y in Young Entrepreneurs. Now it's the Entrepreneurs Organization. And I'm kind of like a member for life because of what I've done. And so I'm part of both the West Michigan chapter and the Detroit chapter. And so I've been helping bring in all kinds of speakers. And so he's coming in to speak to them in June. I said, Dave, do you mind coming in and talking to the chapter? And he said, no, of course I'll do it. Just like that. Just like that. But it's not for John, it's for the chapter. I want to help this chapter grow. I want them to have great events, and I know the process in which to do it. So it's not to do anything for me directly, but indirectly, of course, it's beneficial. So all that long, thank you for the request. I'm happy to have follow-on conversations with you. But I really think our trick is, one is, can we get you into abundance? Maybe, maybe not, but it's worth asking. And then secondly, we got to find somebody in your backyard that who has resources and connections. They're the local John Anderson, and you befriend them, and then it just sort of goes from there. And then your job in the meantime is, I got to sharpen my saw. If I get the opportunity to cut wood, I need to nail it. Not because it's what I should do, it's because I want to do, and ultimately I want to love doing it. And that's all that I've done on my whole journey.
No word can thank you. I mean, I can't thank you enough, John. You've been, it took me 13 consecutive months sitting here talking to it's like around 200, and you're 299. You're my 299. Next interview would be with 300. I mean, that will be my third century. So I mean, it took 300 people to reach you. I've been talking every day. I mean, I have, I have 4,000 connections on LinkedIn, and you can understand how much request. I mean, it could have been like 10,000, maybe 15,000 requests. Then only I have 4,000. I mean, it took around 10 to 15,000 requests on LinkedIn, 400 connections, 4,000 followers, and say similar connections also. And one of my mentors in Silicon Valley, Shannon Left Brain, she taught me the art of asking. I was very shy. I mean, if you go back and scroll all media about myself, you won't find even a picture on there. But I mean, now you would find 300 interviews with people like yourself and the mentors from Silicon Valley, or US, generally from US, because I love Silicon Valley, and I believe that's mother of tech, and the all exponential solutions are born there. This is my belief. But for sure, yes, rest of the world is also working. And I can't really thank you for giving me the chance to be the part of abundance 360 in any mean and manifestation. I would love to do it, love to do it. Just because rather, this will be my dream come true, if at all, if I be anyhow closer to that. One, secondly, I mean, yeah, I really love your spirit, that I mean, you find ways, and you are solution oriented, and you just thought that you'll pitch me in just because those who can't pay, really I can't pay, just because this is huge. But I mean, I have been podcasting with the intention, with the intent, and with the energies, and following Peter Demandis, Kurzweil, Salim Ismail, Imad Musa, Gomwad, and the people, other people. I mean, I don't, maybe I forget names also. So a lot of people trying to follow them, and I have strongest of the belief that's the only way that we can have the exponential solutions. And if there are exponential solution, only then we can, the survival can be there. Just because now the targets are moving, like I mean, it's like if somebody's bowling, I mean, it's pitching from one place another place, you got to all paradigm shift. As you said, I mean, we've got the knowledge from the past, and we are handling the future problems. I mean, the old solution, I mean, the as Sujata Mitra, in his teachings, from a man from India, he worked on old school. I mean, the old schooling is all irrelevant. since AI is there, I mean, it has to be the, like, we've got the problems. I mean, are with AI, and how can we solve the with the old books and old school thought? So we have to be at now coming. I mean, I would really request you to please mentor me. I mean, I offer myself to you to guide me to be part of abundance. So, and I have got just in October 2025 there was a project you might, since you were also there in abundance 360 in October, there prize was given to a person who got an idea of affordable living
Hmm.
in $250, housing, connectivity, mobility, food, and energy. Five things only in $250 a month. This is really, really amazing. I have found the guy and I have sent him the request on LinkedIn, and I'm trying to reach him through his websites and other businesses he has. But I'm not getting any closer to him just because I am from housing I work here in Pakistan, in my country, in an organization. We extend, I'm more mortgage finance professional. So I've been doing this for 22 years now. And over here, out of 8 billion people on the face of earth, there are 3 billion, maybe 2.5 to 3 billion people living in inadequate living as per UN Habitat's figures. And these are ever increasing just because the population is growing out of proportion. And I mean, since in your countries you have controlled this, in Europe it is bit controlled, but in my part of the world it is, I don't know. I mean, it is exploding, and the resources are all there. But since only, I mean, we are not only looking to the resources with underneath in the under surface of the earth, but no, this is one of the fantastic resource. As you said, this is the most beautiful resource we have. This is one of the most powerful resource we have. So I have a belief that, I mean, if a person like yourself mentors, just because you're like rubbing your shoulder with Peter Demendes, Ray Kurzweil, with Slim Ismail, with Gaw Muadat, with Imad Mustaq, and the people of those who are engine of the technology, those who are giving birth to the exponential solutions. They are giving birth to exponential corporations. And and I, I, I I am of the belief, if you mentor me, and please, if you at all have little time, I know you are a very busy person. If you go and watch my media wall, you would find 300 interviews with the people. I mean, not all at your level, but I mean, I tried to find them through LinkedIn. I requested them, and they are generous like yourself, giving time, mentoring me. And I am being mentored in Silicon Valley the founder is Lizel Mendoza, and that's and that's the mentoring club Silicon. And the Kimberly Wiefling, she is also my mentor. She's the founder of Silicon Alliance. And Shannon Lovegren, she is the founder of Shannon Funds, and she was the one who made me convince, reach out people and ask them for time. As I ask you, I mean, I'm feeling so blessed listening to her and following what she said. And now, I mean, I'm very close to my destiny. And since I'm talking to you, and you can make my dream come true. And as you show me the book that we are gods. So honestly, we are writing our own destiny with our own hands. It's, I mean, it's not about how. It's only about we've got very strong why, and the commitment and purpose to solve world's bigger problems. And these bigger problems can only be solved with these exponential technologies and exponential thinking. I mean, we can't go linear. This is, I mean, we can't, nothing arithmetic can work right now. No linear solution can be the solution to the exponential problems. So back to you for your final words. And I really thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to that you'll be putting my name to the council in 360 Abundance. and I'm really obliged if at all I can do anything for the cause. I'm here. I'm sitting together. I'm sitting every day, and I'm giving at least 3 to 5 hours to my mission. That I am on the mission to unleash abundance of health, wealth, and happiness. So that's my moonshot. That's my the mission of the Global Abundance Organization. So I want to organize the abundance as Google organized the world's data, as the TED Talk, ideas worth spreading. They worked on this, and like Elon Musk is impacting the world through Starlink, or through X SpaceX, or through his Tesla. And I believe, although I am almost nobody, or I have nothing, no good. I'm not good at brains, and I don't have exponential solution. I'm not a big brain, but I can connect big brains like yourself to the people who really matter. So I can be a good connector, a good amplifier. So back to you. I would seek advice from you, and a message to the planet, and give me the roadmap for our next discussions. Back to you, John.
Well, thank you. And again, I've got a couple ideas I can follow up on. And when you talk about being a connector, I'm certainly a connector. So I'm trying to think who are the right connections beyond abundance. Um, and I would, I don't know if it's a mentor role, but I'm certainly open to keeping uh, to ongoing dialogue with respect that I've got my two moonshots I'm working on, and I've got a client load, and lots of stuff on my plate. But let me make some initial connections and see where we can get this to go. Fair enough.
Great. Thank you so much. And a message to the planet.
Message to the planet. Oh, that's um I use the greatest gift we've been given, the greatest technology, and it's right here between our ears. And every great solution, every great breakthrough has come through somebody sitting down and thinking how to solve a problem. And we are all given that. That's the one thing that's equal within all of us. This is like a muscle. It has to be worked. But the return on investment on this, you're never going to be the strongest person. You're never going to run the fastest. So, a horse will run faster than you and so on. So this is the greatest gift. So use that. And then also make sure that your thoughts align with your heart. The other thing is I'm a big believer that when we're young and we're growing, we're going to our head for all the answers. I have found that when I can create that quietness to listen to my heart or my soul, there's some truth that's spoken deep inside me. And I want to be closer to it all the time. So think and then listen to your soul.
Thank you so much for a wonderful advice. Think and listen to your soul. Thank you so much, John. See you soon again.
Thank you. Okay.
Bye bye, and stay blessed. And I really can't thank you enough.
Thank you.